Welcome everyone to the Lead Generation World Podcast. We've got a great guest today, Josh Friend from Insellerate. We'll get started with him in just a few moments. Don't forget to register at Lead Generation World. Prices have gone up. It was $295, now it's $395. So don't let it continue to rise before you register. Get it while it's very inexpensive. We got a lot of great content planned. You can take a look at our website for the agenda, see all the speakers, see what sessions are planned. We've got a lot going on for insurance lead buyers, mortgage lead buyers, solar, EDU lead buyers, and really a lot of content for lead generators across the board. So if you're a seller, if you're a service provider, we've just got a lot of great content for you guys. So take a look at leadgenerationworld.com and get registered as soon as possible. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Josh Friend from Insellerate. All right, welcome to the Lead Generation World Podcast, Josh. It's good to have you, man.
Yeah, great to be part of it, Mike.
Yeah. You know, we've known each other for I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years now, right?
Yeah, it has to be.
Tell me a little bit. You're based in Southern California? You guys are your offices are in Newport. Have you been a Southern California kid for forever, or did you move here?
I know. I grew up in Huntington Beach. I lived in Chicago for a year. I lived in San Luis Obispo for a few years. Yeah. Other than that, I've been in this area most of my life.
That's great. So you grew up in Huntington Beach, surfing and all that kind of stuff, or what?
Yeah, I did surf. Definitely, you can't grow up in Huntington without surfing. It's this kind of surf city. Yeah. It just kind of goes with the culture. But I play a lot of sports. So in high school and stuff, in college, you have to choose, like, can I surf every day or practice and lift weights? So football got me into school, so I lifted weights and played football.
Okay, so what position you play in football?
I was an offensive tackle.
An offensive tackle?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have pegged you for an offensive tackle.
Let me say, I'm 6'4", 205 pounds now, but I was 290 pounds when I played football.
Holy cow.
That was
how did you go about losing all that weight?
It's funny. I talk about that. It wasn't hard. It was actually really, really easy because I ate 16,000 calories a day.
Golly.
290 pounds. I mean, I woke up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock, on a 3,000 calorie shake and carried cans of tuna in my backpack so I could keep the weight on. So I stopped playing football and I just started eating like a normal person. And I lost 90 pounds in like 6 months.
Get out of here. I would think that'd be hard. I mean, just for the fact that you're in a habit of eating all the time, food is an addiction, just like anything else. At least for me, because I'd love not to eat as much, ice, whatever it is, or sugar and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I mean, I can't. That's amazing. So 290, holy mackerel. So you went and played offensive tackle at San Luis Obispo?
Yeah. I got hurt my freshman year, so I didn't have a really long career which it resulted in 4 knee surgeries afterwards. So it was a short-lived.
Jeez. Yeah, because as a tackle, I'm sure you're getting, you said offensive tackle. So you're just getting people falling all around you.
People don't realize how, like, the offense, defensive lineman, that's got to be the most physical part in football, right? Because you're just, it's big people literally beating on each other for, play after play.
Yeah. And those guys are, obviously the games, now football season's back in, and, you look at these guys are, you said you're 6'4", 290, which is probably, sort of average, I would guess. But there's some guys that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'8", 300 pounds, and they're running. And I mean, they're not fat guys. I mean, they're big. Don't get me wrong.
That's right.
But they're strong guys. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. I always tell people it's not just being big. There's a lot of big people out there that don't play professional football.
Yeah.
You're like Refrigerated Perry, right? Remember how massive that guy was?
Yeah.
He had like a 40-something inch vertical. He could stand under right? He could stand underneath the hoop and dunk two-handed from a standstill, right? I mean, that's unbelievably, a guy who could move and he was that big. So it's two things: being really big and also being very athletic.
Yeah. So you went to San Luis Obispo, graduated there. How'd you get in the mortgage industry?
Didn't graduate.
Okay.
The story really was, I was 22. My girlfriend got pregnant, and I was looking for a job. Said, all right, well, I need to find a job. I need to, make a living because I didn't have
Yeah.
family or anyone that could help me with having a kid. So I got a job at, it was actually down to two things. It was either a plumber's apprentice or a loan officer for Loanworks, which was IndyMac Bank's first call center. I took the job at Loanworks,
Yeah.
and that's how I got in. I mean, I got in right away in '99. It was actually when the market changed. The rates had gone up. It was quite interesting. I had a lot of luck, I say, in those 2 years, because when the rates went up, it forced me to learn how to really sell, and also how to actually like outbound dial and find business, which, I got in, I was 22, came out of training class. Actually, first day on the phones, I remember everyone was complaining and the rates had gone up almost 0.5% in a week. People wanted to quit and no one wanted to do anything. And here I was thinking, well, I have a family. What am I going to do? And IndyMac Bank had a portfolio of loans.
Uh-huh.
And this is actually something I've used to train people for years. We had this portfolio of loans, and Chuck Holroyd, who was the head of the marketing at the time for the Consumer Direct Group at IndyMac Bank, said, hey, listen, we're going to let all of you guys go in here and take 10 names out of the portfolio. Each day you can go online and you can print out 10 names, and we'll let you call those people. They call it the port snort. That was the program. And everyone got 10 names to call on. So I was on a team of 10, and of course, everyone around me said, I'm not making a cold call. Why would I do that? So I said, okay, can I have your 10? Can I have your 10? Can I have your 10? So I get 100 of them. By day 2, no one would even print them out. So I said, give me your password. When you go to lunch, I'll sit at your desk. I'll print them out for you. So I did that. So I had a stack of 100 files every night, went home, laid in bed till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Back when you had, pricing engine, I hand priced every single one of those, used my amortization calculator, wrote out benefit, how much how much I could save every single person every night, all 100 of them. I prioritized the highest savings to the top, went to work next day with my other stack of leads, put those on top. And then I just made 300, 400, 500 phone calls a day. And, within a short period of time, I was number 7 rep of 150 within 2 months, I think.
Jeez.
By the time I left, I was number 1. It's a debate. I left with my good friend, Steve Lee. We actually started our first mortgage company together.
Uh-huh.
The debate was, I think I was higher in units. He was higher in volume. So who was number 1 of the company? So I was units. I think he was the volume number 1. So that's really how I started. And I say that was, I was lucky because I learned how to pick up the phone and how to reach out and find business. Right. And I think that was a really valuable lesson at a really early age, and has, stayed with me for my whole entire career, is don't be afraid of the phone.
Yeah. Well, that's huge, because a lot of people are, I mean, just picking up the phone, you're afraid of rejection, they're afraid they're just going to, hang up on you or whatever it may be, or you just don't know what to say, right? When people don't have the right training and guidance, they don't know what to even say.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I mean, I knew I could save people money, and I kind of always had this conviction. And if you're in this industry, you sell loans, is you have to have the conviction of, can I help someone? And I like, I can help these people. If I'm looking, going here, I can save someone $200-300 a month. That's worth calling them, right? They should be happy with that. Like, hey, yeah, I'm going to save you $300 a month. Maybe to some people that may not seem a lot, but that's a lot of money. For a lot of people, they can send their kids to, band practice, or they can get them swim lessons, things that they right now can't afford. All of a sudden they were able to afford. So I saw, a lot of value in that, and kind of made it my mission to really help people, save money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Help me.
So were you back in 99, 2000, were they, did they have a lead management platform? You called it UWork or whatever it was, or was it really just picking up the phone and punching in the numbers, or?
Yeah. So that's what I mean, to your point, kind of the genesis of my career was, they didn't have a lead management platform. I actually remember when we first got LendingTree leads, and we got leads from Intuit's website, because somehow they were getting leads on their website. And we were literally printing out leads on the printers, and just stacks of leads. We'd go back, all right, here's your stack, give it to the loan officer, and everyone would go out to the desk, and realize quickly, well, that's not the best way to hand out a bunch of inventory. There really wasn't lead systems. I went from that to like a really rudimentary way to manage the leads. But I had left the company by 2003 and started my first mortgage company. And what I had done during the time was I had spreadsheets. I had built my own like paper, legal size paper notepads, like with columns, and I had this whole way I managed my day. So I would just manually track leads, manually put everything in there. And I worked a lot. I didn't take lunch. I sat at my desk, ate Uncle Ben's, rice bowl for lunch, and I just worked.
Yeah.
So I managed all this stuff. When I started my first mortgage company, I hired, my first 2 hires are good friends of mine, really good friends of mine. They just graduated college. I'd been making like 30 grand a month at IndyMac Bank, and they were asking, what are you doing, man? This is crazy. I said, I'll teach you. You come work for me. I'm not going to pay you anything because I can't right now, but I'll teach you how to make 30 grand a month. Sit in the desk. I gave them my program, my system, and I managed them. And then I started hiring within about a year, turned that manual process into some actual technology and automated some processes. And that really started kind of the whole mix of technology and, being in the mortgage industry. But we didn't have systems back then. I mean, it was email. There's actually half lenders don't have them now. They're still email leads to people. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And back then too, they used to fax leads, to people. So you get your Excel spreadsheet, your file and fax, and man, talk about data privacy these days. Jeez.
Yeah, no, that was, and then if you were new and you hired you got the stack of all the old fax and all the old internet printout leads, and you sat there and worked for that for a month. I gave you, this stack to call and said, hey, you go call. Yeah. Right? Because if you're not afraid of the phone, I can teach you to sell. You go call, you get a hold of people, and then we'll teach you how to price a loan and sell it to them. And that was really, that company within less than 2 years was doing $500 million a year, all consumer direct. So it was all call center based, direct mail, internet, telemarketing, those usual suspects. So, we grew pretty quickly.
Yeah. And that was right before sort of another mortgage sort of boom too, right? Early 2000s, right?
Yep.
So how does, I was talking to somebody the other day, and one of the things with mortgage, the industry, is that you do have these just waves, right? It's based on interest rates, and when interest rates are low, there's a refi boom, and when it's not, you're focusing on other things or purchase or doing, it's a little bit harder to get business. So you started in the late 90s, and you talked a little bit about interest rates there, and then going into the sort of the boom, and what was it, 2004, maybe 2005, 2006, I guess, I don't know, can't remember. How does one sort of manage that these days, that continual up and down?
I really took to it early on. I mean, there's a couple of things. One is just your own personal outlook, right? You have to have, there's optimism, and that's something that, we talk about why some people won't pick up the phone to call and make outbound dials, because they don't see value in it, right? It's like, they think they're wasting it. They're not optimistic that they're going to get something out of it, or they get told no 50 times. I just had a list and said, I need to get told no 75 times to get to a yes. So I didn't take my no's as defeat. I took my no's as just one step closer to a yes, right? So it's kind of the mental side of how you looked at it, right?
Yeah.
I also looked at it because I remember at IndyMac Bank, it was the same thing when the rates went up, and the phone stopped ringing, and everyone was just complaining. Like, we have about 150 loan officers, and people were just like, I'm going to go sell insurance. I'm going to go. Half the people I started with quit and went somewhere else. And I sat there in 150 people, and I saw we were still getting like 50, 60, 70 loans in a day. Went from like 200 or 300 to like 50. And I went, okay, well, there's 50 of them out there. Why don't I get one or two of those 50, right? There's no reason why I can't get those two of those 50.
Yeah.
And I started realizing, at any market, just really think on it, in any market, there's a financial product in the mortgage space that people buy. You just have to understand what that is, have systems in place that can really kind of go after it. So, if you're just selling rate, then you have to learn how to sell cash out if you're doing refinances, or you have to do purchases. And, a lot of people didn't understand how to sell cash out. I mean, rates could be at 8%. And with today's market, there still would be an unbelievable amount of people you could save money to. We're at an all-time high again with the credit card debt. So if you start understanding that, it was just really being a student of the game, right? Understanding credit card debt, what does that look like? If you have a bunch of credit card debt, I don't care if your rate's 4%, right? Your combined rate's, 15%. So your total payments right now are $2,000. Your new payments are $1,500, and Let me explain to you how I'm saving you $500 a month, which is $6,000 a year, which is $18,000 over 3 years. Or I'm going to apply it to your principal, and your loans will be paid off in 19 years. I'm going to save you 11 years at 12 payments at 2,000. You get the math. So that's really what it came down to. Just understand that math. And then just really be an advocate for the customer. Like if you can really explain it to the customer, right, the math of it, then, it works. So you just have to know, one is optimistic. Know that there's people doing loans, right? Even a down market, I think it's like a $1.2 trillion a year industry. I think that's like a down year.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's really two things, when I think about it. One is the products that you're talking about, right? The shift in maybe product focus, and then also staffing and operations, shifts and changes that you have to manage. I want to continue on what you're talking about though, with regards to the product sort of shifts. People also look from, the refi to purchase and those are two totally different animals. Is that how are companies that you see sort of managing those two different sales processes and doing it successfully, or are they doing it at all? Are they really just sort of focusing on one or the other?
I typically, companies focus on one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to go from being a refi company and going into the purchase side, right now is probably the best time. It is by far the best time ever to do that. Just because if you really look at the consumer these days, retail loan officers have dominated the space in purchase business, but that's actually been growing in consumer direct. Right? I think consumer direct is now dominates over retail for refinances. And if you just really think about the transaction today and the sense of loyalty and brand awareness, if the average consumer only repeats 1 in 4 goes back to the original lender, everyone's up for grabs. The day where you could just shake the person's hand because you are the loan officer and you sponsor the kids' team, right? You buy them pizza, or you're friends with a real estate agent. I mean, that's still there. People we want to work with people we trust, but you have to understand those people are looking online, right? That's why I tell people, you retail loan officers, I know you don't go online, you're not buying leads online, but your customer is. Because every time they go to Zillow to look at the houses, guess what? Zillow's offering them a mortgage, and so is 15 other mortgage companies. Whether or not they're your borrower or not, they are looking online. So that means we're starting to have consumers move past this space. But to your first question, it's tough right now because what happens is when the rates are low, lenders are at capacity, and so they're happy. They're making a bunch of money. The market starts to move. They say we need to do more purchase. And what's happened almost every time we've seen that market move and they go to purchase, the rates drop again. And all of a sudden, all these purchase groups that are trying to get in the purchase space, they go, wait a minute, my refis are so high, I need to take this money now, and we'll worry about purchase down the road. And what happens is a lot of lenders don't fully flesh out the transition to purchase. You almost have to burn the bridge, burn the boats.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Create another office, and you have to commit, because if you're in this space, and let's say you're consumer direct, you can get a return of capital in 3 months for refinances. But purchase, it could be a year, 9 months or a year, because it's a much longer tail to get that transaction going. But once the transaction works, we have lenders that do purchase in the call center, and they're killing it because that's all they've done. Right? They don't delineate. They don't jump into the refi game. So it's tough. It's there's a bunch of free money, if you will, refinances right now falling from the sky. So lenders are having a hard time staying committed to just person purchases.
Yeah. So I mean, if a company's focused on just refinance, then you talk about the ebb and flows of rates, and then how that affects operations with staffing. Yeah. You find companies laying off a bunch when rates are high, and then hiring and firing, and back and forth. What do you see in companies do that are sort of lowering that sort of curve? You know what I'm saying? Are they using automation in some ways that are improving the process where they don't have to hire, fire, like that?
Yeah, it's automation. It's systems. So what I mean by that is, if you look at closing loans, it's as much manual process as you possibly can to get. How can you remove those manual processes? And then it's having systems almost like an assembly line, right? So you see a car get built, you don't have one person do the entire thing. So lenders who break up a transaction into different parts. What I find is you have, what I mean by that is this, is maybe you have one group of people, you call them like your disclosures clerks or your fulfillment clerks. They send out disclosures, they maybe open escrow and title, right? You have another group that is in charge of managing the appraisals coming in and maybe escrow title. So it's an assembly line. So a loan comes in. So all these things are kind of broken down in these assembly lines. So when the market is, and then there's senior processors at the very end. So two things happens when the market gets really we're over capacity. It's much easier to go find someone untrained, entry-level employee at $15 an hour and teach them how to order escrow and title, right?
Yeah.
And the person that's already in there ordering escrow and title, and they're doing it for 3, 4, 5 months. It's much easier to say, okay, now it's your job to follow up on escrow and title, read the title reports. You know, if there's anything obscure or wrong in title, alert the processor, right? And then you can break down to even to the point where one person's job is to submit the loans to underwriting. And then once the loans come out underwriting, then the senior processor gets on. So if you break down these processes, what you find is it's easier to hire these lower level employees. And then you have a training ground to get the senior processor, right? And so then when the market contracts, you have maybe the right amount of senior processors, but maybe you have more of these fulfillment coordinators, escrow coordinators, submissions coordinators, these different types of roles down there that you could let go, and they're also not very expensive, right? And then you can build it. And then times like this, I can't tell you how many of my lenders are clients and friends of mine that are saying, hey Josh, because I was in the mortgage industry for a long time. Hey, do you know where any of your old processors are? They're all looking for people, and they're scrambling. And a really good friend of mine has just been growing like crazy. And I just said, listen, I think what you need to do is you have your senior processor open an escrow and title. Don't do it anymore. Go find someone $15 an hour, take that work off their plate. And then when the market changes, maybe put it back on their plate if you have to, right? And then you can go the lower staff. That's typically what we've seen is best to kind of work with the ebb and flows of this.
Yeah. What's your, that sort of leads me to, and I promise we're going to get to what you're up to now. We've been talking a lot about the mortgage industry.
Yeah. This is what I've done in my life. So I enjoy this.
Yeah. But so, one of the big questions is digital mortgage, the whole process, sort of new soup to nuts process online and where that's going. And I think that's always been sort of a conversation over the last, number of years. And, you get a lot of people that say that's never going to happen. Loan officers never going to go away. This is a customer service, business. And then there's people on the other side that say, no, this can be completely automated online. Doc submissions, you name it, can all be done without really even talking to anybody. What's your take?
Well, you have to look at just consumer behavior. And I think you start with that. So let's start with the big overarching thing as far as a mortgage. The average American consumer's largest financial transaction of their life is buying a house or refinancing a home, right? So I don't know what the median household income is now, but I think it's somewhere in the $60,000 range, right? So if they're doing a mortgage for $200,000 or $300,000 home, right? Mm-hmm. That's their biggest financial transaction. They're not dealing, at work. If they're, you think about it, you talk to your average borrower. They're not, managing millions of dollars transacting them. So they're teachers, they're lawyers, or they're doctors, they're everyday dentists, they're people that work at the grocery store. So when it comes to a mortgage, that's a big transaction, right? They want someone to help them. They want someone to talk to them. So I don't think we're going to lose consumers that want. Now there's always going to be like I wouldn't need to talk to someone about a mortgage because I know the industry, and so there's people that can figure it all on their own. But that's going to be a slice of the people. But then most people still want to talk to someone. So I think we will still we'll have to have human interaction because people want to talk to people, right? They want some advice. And the second thing is regulation. I don't see the government saying the loan officer is not required in a transaction anytime soon. Yeah. Right. So the loan officer has to be involved in the transaction. Now, whether or not how involved they are is different, right? I see the change. If you really look at the mortgage change, it's not going to be, it says different. There will be fewer loan officers in 5 years, 10 years from now. No question. Two things will happen. One, the average age of loan officer, and I could be wrong. I know I wrote a post about it, I had the right stats, but isn't like close to 60 years old. And I want to say that
how old's the average loan
I
officer?
think it's close to 60, like 58, 59. I have to go back.
60?
Yeah, it's getting close to 60.
Wow. I would
Yeah.
have never thought it was that old. Huh.
There's a stat, and I know I posted it on LinkedIn, so I know the right stat, but it's somewhere 30,000, 40,000 plus loan officers are going to leave the industry in the next 6 years. It might even be higher than that.
Huh.
So we're going to have a bunch of loan officers exit, which I think is kind of really good timing, because around the same time, loan officer efficiency should pick up. Right. So if the average loan officer now, and depends what stat you look at, let's just say does 5.5 loans a month. Well, that can change to 15 loans in a month. Right.
Yeah.
With technology, there's so many manual processes in a mortgage. It's unbelievable. And that will.
So what do you think that, before we get on the technology part, what do you think the deal is with the younger, is there not new younger guys coming into the market? I mean, or into the job role?
There's not.
Hmm.
I mean, I mean, I was, last spring, I was doing a lecture at a class at UCI for graduate students, an entrepreneurial class for graduate students. And I was there for about an hour, and I asked everyone a question: who here has heard of the mortgage industry, of an industry to get into? One person raised their hand. Oh, how do you know about it? Well, my dad was in the mortgage industry. No one else had even thought of it. And then I said, hey, did you know that it's a 1.2 trillion industry and a down year, and this I started giving some numbers. People were like they didn't, like, it just doesn't occur. So it doesn't occur to people to go in the mortgage. It's not sexy. Like, I want to be in the mortgage. That's not a sexy career. And then second, I mean, quite honestly, being in the mortgage industry for almost the last 10 plus years has almost been like a 4-letter word. Right after the market crash, it was like, oh, you're in the mortgage. I got one of two things. You're in the mortgage industry. I feel sorry for you. You must be broke, because I heard you guys. That was like one. Or two, oh, you're one of those guys. Like, kind of like you're
Right.
one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, first, when the market crashed, soon after the market crash was some of my best years in the industry, because guess what? Competition left.
Yeah.
So there's less noise. There's still people doing loans. So it was really great. It was actually great for us. And then second, the mortgage industry drives our economy.
Right.
It's just plain and simple. I mean, we help people buy homes, and so I think we're one of the good guys, of the good group of people that are out there actually really, helping, not hurt. And that was a storm of credit card companies, secondary market. There's so much involved in that market crash that wasn't necessarily just mortgage related. That's an unfair picture to be painted on them,
Right.
just the mortgage.
Yeah. And that, what was that, 2007 or 8, I guess, the subprime sort of, crash, and the big companies, the guys out there in Irvine, those companies, the big names on the buildings out there in Irvine. What was it? Century, New
Century.
Yeah. I mean, all those guys, just all kind of collapsed. And
oh yeah. Fremont Investment Loans, Argent, Ameriquest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they all collapsed. And I don't know if I would say that they were the problem for the crash.
Right.
There's all the derivative trades and all this other stuff that was happening behind the scenes that really drove a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. So with regards to automation and digital mortgage, you're now you've been running Insellerate, which is a lead management company, right?
Lead management, but we kind of, to paint the right picture, it's like lead management or CRM or market automation. Those are kind of like broad stroke terms. So really, what if you look at our platform, it's really around borrower engagement and customer management at the end of the day. So it's not just, a Velocify was just lead management. Then there's like a full CRM, which we have a true full CRM. We do lead management plus a full CRM, but really it's around borrower engagement. That's what we've done a lot with our automation for communicating to customers through like email or text messages or social media, phone calls, direct mail. That's really, at the end of the day, it's how do you manage a customer, a hand raiser, from today for the next 20 years of their life. Right? The average consumer does 11 transactions. How do you have a system that helps you manage to try to get all 11 of those transactions?
Yeah. So give me a scenario. So a prospect comes in, give me a scenario that works through Insellerate, and how the touches occur and what happens.
Yeah. Prospect comes in, let's say you get a internet lead. and you first off, immediately it's going to find out who the lender lead should go to based off of skills, state licensing, loan types, who does VA loans, who does loan purpose purchase versus cash out. So you can have your team have skills, so it goes to the right person with the right skill. It can make their phone ring immediately. It can make everyone's phone ring immediately. There's a lot of things, but ultimately what we try to do is lead comes in and we want the loan officer's phone ringing and the customer's phone ringing in less than 10 seconds. So the lead comes in, we're on the phone with them right away. The system automates that process. If you don't get a hold of them in that call, the system has a whole array of what we call engagement pathways. So it's going to send the text message at minute 5. At hour 2, it's going to prompt the second phone call. At hour 6, it's going to send an email. The following day, if you still haven't talked to them, it's going to prompt a call or a text message, or it's going to post a Facebook ad, right? So you're going to put something on their Facebook page. Day 3, it's going to do a ringless voicemail. So whether the loan officer continues to track that lead down, you're going to have a pathway for the first 30 days, high contact. It's going to do phone calls, emails, text messages, Facebook posts. You can do direct mail in there, ringless voicemail, and all these different touch points. So now you're constantly in front of your customer. What we've found is really impactful is if you try to email someone every day, first off, email won't work for everyone, right? Text won't work for everyone. So you have to have varied channels. And if you just email someone every day, they get annoyed. They're not listening to you. If you text them every day, they're going to get annoyed. If you call them times, so how do you stay in front of them without annoying them? And you're going to be able to stay in front of them through all these different channels. That's really what it comes down to. So now I'm, Josh Friend, I apply with, ABC Mortgage. I don't talk to them right away, but next thing I know, they're in front of me. I see them in Facebook. I see them on Instagram. I got an email from them. I got a text. I got a phone call. And the content, the message is all coordinated. Since we're managing that customer, the text message matches the Facebook post. The same call to action or content we're pushing matches the email, matches the ringless voicemail, matches the direct mail, so forth and so on. So now it is really branded experience that is relevant to the consumer. Now, I talk to you and you take an application and you stall out. Now I'm going to have a whole engagement pathway to talk to you about. We've done the hard work. We've got your application. Let's move forward. So wherever the consumer is at, it knows, and it's going to give a message that, really brings that customer, back on the phone.
Yeah. So that's, a ton of efficiency, obviously, not having to do all these things manually, or even having, my guess is most people wouldn't even think about doing a lot of those things, let alone doing it manually.
Yeah.
But what is, out of curiosity, with outreach to prospects, back in the day, you just pick up the phone and you made those manual dials. Now you're talking about text messaging and Facebook Messenger and all these other things. Are there specific contact sort of trends that you're seeing sort of work more and more effectively, like text? Is texting becoming the main channel of communication these days?
Yeah, there's two. So there's two things we're seeing that's really driving business for our lenders right now. Text is obviously very impactful. It's very impactful for in line once you have a customer to continue the transaction. The second thing that's really worked unbelievably well is ringless voicemails. Over the last 6 months, the amount of lenders that, we're producing loans for lenders for, $10 a loan. Unbelievably cheap acquisition cost, because what it's doing is you're sending out the best of us. I don't care who you are. When I was a loan officer and I had all my stacks of paper, I always left people on the floor. I wasn't able to call every single person, right?
Right.
But if you're a loan officer and you're in the consumer direct shop and you get 5 to 10 leads a day, at the end of the month, you have a couple hundred leads. Within 2 months, you have 500-600 leads. There's no way you can dial all those people. And if you're a retail loan officer, it's the same thing. Or in a market like this, when the rates drop,
yeah. Well,
how do you reach out to the last 5 years of your customers? You can't. So the ringless voicemail just picks up no matter what, and it drops messages. And when that person calls back, it sends a call back to the original loan officer. That's become very, very, very powerful. Even probably as a response medium more than any other of the channels we're currently using right now. Voicemail.
So are you using that? So the ringless voicemail is mainly for potentially aged leads or maybe portfolios that portfolio leads or something to that effect, or is it
All
somewhere
the above.
earlier in the funnel?
Early in the funnel, absolutely, right? So if I take an application from you, and it's been 7 days and I haven't heard back from you, or you haven't moved forward with that application, drop a ring's voicemail. Right? If I don't call you, then the RVM will go out there and go to the consumer. It's throughout the entire funnel. It's not just age stuff, but it's also in line, or let's say current prospects as well.
Okay, so what about text messaging? Is text, are you finding a lot of people utilizing text to communicate back and forth as well? Like
Yes.
once you get the contact and things are moving forward, is that sort of the go-to?
Yeah, it's also, we all, for text is strong. It's also strong for like the initial call. Let's say I get your lead.
Yeah.
I call you, you don't answer. I send the text, and maybe I put in the point of sale link. So you can put we will send out an email or a text message rather, with the link to the loan officer's, URL to, Be Smarty or a Docket or a Blend or someone, so the point of sale link is going to be sitting in there. So they're able to actually just, complete the application. So text does work. I will say text messaging as a whole in the last, let's say 3 or 4 months, has become a little more challenging.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The carriers released new AI about 30 days ago.
Yeah.
And, spamming for text messages for mortgages is very, very popular. So the carriers are using AI, and they're really, it's become more of a challenge to use text cleanly, if you will. You can't just mass market text. You have to have, good content, get approved. There's a process that make it work right. So a lot of lenders maybe aren't as successful with it right now because their texts aren't going through like they should. It's stuff that we're constantly working on, but it's constantly changing and evolving.
Yeah. No, I've seen that. I saw some, even I think I saw an article the other day with iPhone, regarding iPhone. The OS platform is actually I can't remember the exact details, but it had to do with something around filtering out text messages and calls from unknown phone numbers. So they were looking at, I think, blocking, and I think it was something you can turn. I wish I could remember the details, but
You can.
they could, basically stop any unknown phone call that's not in your contact for the most part from going through. But I want to say it was more, it wasn't so manual. I think they were actually going to be more proactive with just flat out blocking calls from known spam phone numbers or groups or whatever it may be.
Yeah, they are. So what the carriers are doing is monitoring velocity of phone numbers.
Yeah.
So if they see a phone and all of a sudden this phone made 1,000 calls or 1,000 text messages, or it's actually like over 50 in a day, and it sees that there's this many texts, and then it's going to say, oh, what's that? Why would you send 50 text messages with the same message? And then the AI is going to go in there and say, what are the words? And right now, mortgage, loan, those things are, a lot of people are spamming with those things. So those are getting filtered out. What really changed was in December, the FTC changed the classification of text messages. So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, the FCC. So it's phone calls. Let's start with the phone calls. Phone calls have guaranteed deliverability, so it's considered a form of communication. So a phone carrier can't decide to go, oh, this is Michael's phone number. I don't want to connecting his calls. It's originally for political reasons. So back in the day when, let's say, Republicans or Democrats were calling out,
right,
phone companies, local carriers could be like, oh, well, that's the Democrats or Republicans. We're not going to let any of their calls come through our area because we're just going to stop them. So they said, no, you can't do that. A phone call is a form of communication. If you're a carrier, you have to guarantee you're going to do everything you can to deliver that phone call. And text messages was the same way. Well, it's no longer the case. Text messages are now classified as a information service like the internet. So there's no guaranteed deliverability because it's not a communication like a phone call. So it gave carriers more leeway on saying, maybe we do deliver this traffic, maybe we don't deliver this traffic. So they have a little more ability to filter it and decide what they will and won't allow in the network. And so that went into effect in January. They created some new AI and new filters that really went into effect about 30 days ago. That's gotten ahead of all the spammers out there. So there's a constant cat and mouse game with the spam. We all get it. Our phones blow up for like 2-3 months straight with unknown calls from some
Yeah.
IRS scam or something, and then all of a sudden it stops because they figure out how to stop it. So this is just kind of an ongoing process right now that we're seeing.
Yeah. So with the text messaging, then it's you really have to be pretty measured with texts that are going out, and maybe it can't be automated, right? I mean, automated from a point that is duplicated over and over and over and over, but it could be automated in a way that's more organic, I suppose.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we automate it, and it comes from the loan officer's number,
Yeah.
not just from a generic number. And
Oh, okay.
yes,
Okay.
and you're not sending out 5,000 in an hour kind of thing. And
Yep.
you there are ways still to do that. And there are ways to get whitelisted and get briefed, and there's processes to allow you to not get blocked. But again, you have to work with the provider right now to knows how to do those things. And again, it's changing literally every
Yeah.
week. There's new information coming out weekly right now on
Yeah.
how to make it better.
Yeah, and my guess is if it's coming from the loan officer's phone number, he's obviously doing a whole lot of other text messaging with other things. So it's a text message that goes out to a borrower or a lead won't look like a campaign that's getting only 2% response rate, because there's a lot of other text messages going out to other people that there are responses, and it's not all duplicate messages and that sort of thing.
That's correct. That's right.
Yeah. Um, so we've got automation. You talked about a little bit about you just mentioned AI as far as the carriers go. You've been I've seen a number of different articles and posts on LinkedIn regarding AI. What are you guys working on with regards to artificial intelligence and how implementing it into sort of the sales process?
So there's a couple projects we have going on right now. We're fortunate enough to add someone by the name of Neil Sahota, who is the United Nations subject matter expert on artificial intelligence and emerging technologies. And he's also an IBM master inventor. There's one of 300 people that get designated a master inventor from IBM. And he's one of the people that actually worked on Watson, as he says, before it was called Watson. He was one of the people that was working on Watson, and he did the Jeopardy challenge, which I just found out like a month or so ago. I didn't realize he was the one that did that. But a while ago, when someone actually beat Jeopardy with the computer, that was AI, and that was Neil's part of that group.
Oh, that's cool.
There's two things there's two things we're doing with AI. One is just the conversational AI, meaning so not only can the system text you, it can text you with AI and say, "Hey, Michael, are you still interested in that loan? When's a good time to talk?" And it can actually create callbacks and interact with you as a consumer. And we have one that can even do some pre-qualification through text messages. Ask you what your credit is. If you don't know what it is, I'll ask you questions like, do you have late payments? And it can actually do a lot of this upfront communication, and really it's built to re-engage customers. So the customer, let's say on the weekend, a lot of lenders are having challenges. They get leads on weekends. Well, we know that the first person to contact the consumer is much highly likelihood to close that transaction. Well, have AI say, "Hey, I'm a bot. I'm not here. Loan officer aren't here now, but let me ask you a couple of questions, and let me schedule a call for you on Monday with the right loan officer." And then you can ask a few questions and at least engage that consumer.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So that's one place where that's something we work on since last year. And there's some other little areas that I'll come out with probably in the next 3 to 4 months and give to the broader market what we've been working on. But it's more back office stuff, more automation.
Got it.
We see things like I saw, it's crazy. You get a loan and you send in your W-2. I mean, quite honestly, there could be 7 people that look at that W-2, right? The loan officer, junior loan officer. Usually people have, loan officer, junior loan officer, some type of like a submission coordinator that takes files in the process, since that's 3 people. Then you maybe have a junior processor that helps stacks a file, looks at it, calculates. And you have a processor who does their work, sends to the underwriter. Then you have the underwriter.
Yeah.
Then you have post-close, QC, all these. I mean, it's pretty wild that we were having common set documents looked at over and over and over again. And they're underwriting a W-2 income to a set of rules that's already defined. So those are processes that AI can take over.
Right.
Those are predefined tasks. They're known outcomes. You calculate the income the same way based off the seller guideline. Shouldn't be any mystery in it. So you can easily take things like that and you can turn those into AI could really help in those back office processes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's amazing the whole archaic process of processing alone, I guess. So you're going to be speaking actually at Lead Generation World and presenting on how to sort of compete with some of these, Amazon, Zillows, these Quick and Loan, the big boys, I guess, of the industry. Just overview, and obviously we're way out from any details of your probably putting it together, but what are you going to be talking about?
I mean, I think really what it comes down to is right now is an amazing time to be probably in any industry if you're trying to run and build a company, and especially the mortgage industry. So the technology, let's say Quicken uses to get customers to engage with their customers, stay in front of those customers, you can buy from us, have it up and going in 30 days. I had heard at one time Quicken had over 100 programmers building this tech. I mean, the massive overhead that they use to use a system to do something that you can buy from us now that is unbelievably cost effective. Not even cost effective, actually generates new loans for you. So the access to technology has greatly changed, and that's something in our industry. Really pushing lenders to really ask themselves the question: who are your current technology providers? Right. So lenders 5 years ago didn't have access to this technology, or 10 years ago, right? But now these tools, because of cloud computing, software as a service, new standardizations and integrations, you have access to really, really easy technology to deploy. But the onus is on the lenders, though, right? So if your technology stack is something that was built in 2000, 2005, 2010, and I'm just going to, we all know, if you're in the industry, we have LSs out there that were built in the 90s. We have lead management platforms that were built in the early 2000s, right? So older technology, and they really served the purpose at the time, but they no longer serve that purpose. So if you can get into newer tech, like something like, we've built, you're able to now all of a sudden instantaneously have access. I mean, a lender can come to us in 30 days. They can instantaneously have access to email, text message, ringless voicemail, direct mail, phone calls, all their leads without having to do anything, right? Whereas in the old days, to do that, you have to go build a text message integration. You have to build a direct mail integration to someone, an email integration to someone, a phone. Like, there's all these things that once had to be done. That's why people like Quicken had 100 programmers, because they needed that staff. But now leverage other people's technology. People don't have to go build and be technology experts anymore. So that's why I think it's great.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's going to be exciting to hear. Before I let you go, I've been looking over your shoulder, and some people may be looking over my shoulder, seeing a bulldog walk around. But what I see these birds on the glass birds. What's the story on those?
So the birds, actually I gave some of the story earlier today. So the birds are kind of go along lines of me being 22 and having a kid and starting my career early. Previous to being 22, I did grow up in Huntington Beach, but I grew up, I'd say, slightly different than a lot of people in Huntington Beach. That I'll say I didn't have a lot of money. There's times as a child I actually experienced homelessness. So I lived with friends. So for me, I didn't have a whole bunch as a kid. And I remember the first time I went on a vacation, I was 23, and I'd gotten, I'd been working for a year and a half, had made a good amount of money, went to Cancun. And I remember being in Cancun and seeing these birds, and there was just one. And I really liked them. That's a really pretty bird. And, I was like 23, and it was like,
was this a real bird, or is this a glass bird thing?
It was this. I can show you. The little bluebird is this little. These are Layla crystal. They're
yeah.
Whatever. I mean, now I don't think I'd ever buy this again, but I keep them. I found it, and I really liked that bird, but it was like 500 for one of them, and I'm like, oh man, it's a lot of money. I don't think I can buy that bird. I just, a year before, I was figuring out how am I going to pay for a family. It was really, right. It's like, I really like that bird. Fast forward 5 years later, I go back. This is after I had my first mortgage company and had good success. Now I go back to Cancun, but now I take my family, my two brothers, my sister, their spouses, all their kids, about 20 of us, pay for the whole trip, go back to Cancun. And then I walked by a store, and guess what? They have not just one, but this whole rack of birds in the window. And I said, you know what? Forget about it. I'm going to buy the whole thing. It was like my own little statement to
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
that I went out, I made money, I had the level of success. So that's why I bought the birds. And so that's why the birds sit back there.
Love it. That's awesome. That's a great story.
Say that.
When was the last time you've been to Cancun?
Dude, it's been 2009 maybe. It's been a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll have to get out there again soon. Maybe after this next lead generation role, we're going to have to make a trip to Cancun.
I love Cancun. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for joining me today. It's you got a great story, a personal story there, and then also just everything your experience within the lead gen with mortgage and what you're doing with Insellerate. If people want to reach out, obviously they can find Josh Friend on LinkedIn. But how else can they get a hold of you?
Just Josh at Insellerate.com.
Yep.
Cool. Insellerate.
Awesome. And then you're going to be at Digital Mortgage, which is next week.
Yeah.
And then of course Lead Generation World. Any other conferences that you're going to be at
We'll be at
the rest of the year?
The NBA. It's in Austin in a few weeks, or was that end of October? We'll be at the NBA
in Austin.
Yeah.
Austin's a fun town. Cool. Well, good stuff. I appreciate you joining, and we'll catch up with you later.
Thanks, Mike. Likewise. Have a great day.